GERO 200, what's up? It's February 22nd. It's Monday. It's another beautiful day in California, and still tough going for those people in Texas. So our heart goes out to you, and we're here to help you. So just please do send us an email, and we'll do everything we can to help you. Alrighty. Um, Last week we did cancer, and this week we're going to be doing diabetes and heart disease. And Diabetes and heart disease really hit the news this year because of the increased vulnerability diabetic and heart disease patients had in terms of um, the not only the infection from the SARS-CoV-2 virus, but the disease COVID-19. They were the vulnerable populations. Okay, and before we get into that, I do want to just kind of reiterate something that an email that Julia sent out. Things change, so surprisingly. So I think it was 2 weeks ago. I did the how-to um, video that's put right here. Okay, in terms of how to do CT one. And then the website changed a little bit. That's okay. We'll just do kind of a workaround. All right. So, and depending on your computer, some people may even have trouble getting the initial phase to work. On this particular computer, it does work for me. I'll start with the age dependency ratio because some people are having a little issue with this. So I want the chart. So I'm going to click right here on the chart. Okay, and up comes the information. Okay, now in this particular case, it's showing as it indicated the world. Okay, and so you get some numbers here. And if again, people ask, what is age dependency? Okay, and this is age dependency ratio old. Okay, so what we do, just have the numerator, just a fraction, like we had in high school, and so the numerator is the number of old people, okay, and then the denominator, the number on the bottom, is the number of people that are working age population, okay, and um, and so that gives us a reflection of dependency at an individual basis, but also really at a societal level, because it's the older people, when we're looking globally, that are tapping in to the entitlement programs, the pensions, okay, the Social Security, the Medicare, stuff like that, okay, and um, and so the young people need to funnel money into the government so that it can support these older people, okay. So the bottom line is the money that supports Social Security and Medicare. It's not a bank that has had compounding interest, that has been earning money and it's a standalone. It's not that way. The money that comes in from your paycheck, that when it's taxed for Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes, immediately goes out for paying those services to older people. Okay. You get more details in terms of the definition. This will help you to write about it by seeing what they talked about right here. Okay, so they explain what it is right here. All right, so you can use this in your description. Okay, um, and then this is some more information down here again that you can use in terms of your description. All right, so just so you know, that's the drill on that, my friends. Okay, so I'm going to X out of that. Okay, all right. So when you go down and start selecting countries, you see at the bottom when I first did it, was it 2 weeks ago? You could select world down here. They've changed the menu. So in this particular graph setting, you cannot. Okay. So one option is just to do a screen capture of the world, okay, and then select the 5 countries, okay. So we can see that I can still, select Afghanistan, okay, and you see now Afghanistan's on the chart, but you see how the world has disappeared. That's why you screen capture the world alone, okay. So you'll end up having 6 graphs for each. We have the 3 different measures we want you guys to look at. I can select Australia. I can select Bangladesh. Okay, and so that's 1, 2. Okay. Let's see here. The Bahamas. How about that? All right. There. Look at that. Now I got 3 different countries. And oh, that's right. We got to go find our friend, the United States of America. So we're going to come down here, all the way to the bottom, and Oh, there we are. I'm going to click there. Okay, all right, and there it is. Okay, so there's my graph. I will have that as a separate graph from the world graph. That is one option. Okay, and you can get actual percentages like this as you're writing up your paper if you wish. The alternative is to go to the actual data bank. Okay, it's a little bit long-winded. Okay, and it's a little slow. I'll just let you, I'm telling you straight up, it's a little bit slow. Okay, all right. So the default setting. Okay, we're looking right here. These are the three countries that I chose on the other side right there. Oh, oops, sorry. And I'm going to get over here. Boop, 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 and you see it goes back all the way through 1990. If you want to extend the database, okay, then you need to change the time series right here. Okay, so let's say I want to extend the database. I'm going to click right here. All right, and let's say I want to take it all the way back to 1964. All right, so you click here the time series that you want. By going click, 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 or you just click right here, and it applies the entire time series to what you're looking at. Okay, all right. So I said apply changes. Okay, and it takes a little while, and then it's in. Okay, so now we can see that I've extended this time series all the way back to 1960, so we can see trends in history. All right. Okay. What we do here is we hit country. All right. All right. And here we can go all the way down. All right, and add. Okay. All the way down. Go, 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 go. We see all these different variables right here, okay, that are a lot more than the previous one. And okay, I'm going, making my way up. There's the United States, okay, which is awesome. And all right, excuse me as I scroll around here. We have Arab world, we have Asia, and somewhere in here we actually have the world at the bottom. Sorry. Okay. So it's at the bottom, guys. Click on that. Okay. Awesome. All right. So now I'm going to apply the changes once again. Again, it's a little slow. Okay. All right. And now we're going to have all these changes along with the world. Okay. Then what you want to do, and again, this is, and I apologize, it's a little bit long-winded. You hit chart. Okay. It's going to take a little while to load there. Okay. All right, this is not the speediest of websites. Okay, this chart right here, as it comes up, looks kind of like, whoa, that's not real useful, is it now? Okay, so what you then do is you click right here. Okay, you're going to export the chart. I'm going to do it as a JPEG. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open it. Okay. And there it is. Okay, so it had or a PNEG, whatever has the best. So do you see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the world. All right, and it has the trends right here. All right, so this is an option. Just wanted to throw it out there. Okay, and then you just do a screen capture on that. Okay, all right, cool, awesome. Okay, all right, let's go back to the nothing but bolts on this. Remember, alternatively, you just do a screen capture of the world and then the four countries that you chose, and you would have 6 graphs this way. Okay, so you guys just figure it out. Alrighty, so let's go on now to this week's assignments. Okay, and let's click right there. And oh yeah, so I wanted to show you, so you check out. See my T-shirt. One of the members of the USC Surf Club gave me this T-shirt. All right, so you can check it out right there. There you go, USC Surf Club. How awesome is that? Okay. Okay. Let's get down here. So we did cancer. We're going to do diabetes, vascular disease, and associated diseases. This is a big deal. We have an obesity epidemic in our country. It's kind of moving worldwide, and there are significant consequences of diabetes in terms of health trajectories. Okay, it's a high risk for vascular disease that leads to heart attack, stroke, kidney failure. Okay, limb loss, eye disease. We'll go through all this, okay? And the biggest risk for diabetes is obesity, okay? So it's a weird disease of developed countries with overnutrition, okay? And we just weren't designed to eat the way we eat. Basically, our ancestors, we would encounter food. Yeah, we might gorge ourselves. Then we might have to go a couple of days without a meal. And having unlimited access to unlimited food is just kind of really counter to the millions of years that it took human beings to get to this point. All right. So, so this is a real brief overview of diabetes. Okay, it'll explain type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is called juvenile diabetes. It's an autoimmune disease. Not fully understood why these autoimmune diseases do erupt, but it is autoimmune, which means your immune system attacks the part of your body that produces insulin. And you'll see later on as you get educated by looking at the videos and in this class that insulin, when you have a meal, gets released by the pancreas. When you eat sugar, in comes the glucose, you release insulin, and then the insulin is a key, it's a hormone that goes to your liver and your muscle cells, fat cells everywhere, and it just basically it goes right into a receptor, and that receptor then opens up and it sucks the glucose out of the blood, and you then use it later on for energy, to do whatever you need to do. If you don't have insulin, the glucose has nowhere to go. Okay, and then what happens is that high level of glucose is not a good thing. It is kind of like candy coating, like a honey baked ham, but it does that to everywhere in your body, and it creates hardening of the arteries. It creates a major immune response called inflammation because it's not normal. The immune system tries to get rid of things that don't look normal, and you run into serious inflammatory disease. Okay, and I'm going to go over that in a second. So this goes step by step. This tells you right here some numbers worldwide and why it's such a big issue. It's a bigger issue in our country than it is in many other parts of the world. Again, because we have unlimited access to nutrition. Okay. Um, these are really great videos that will go through exactly what I was talking about, okay, in terms of how we handle glucose when it gets into the blood. It talks about the differentiation between this juvenile onset type 1 and then the other one, which is type 2 adult onset. And the type 2 can early on not be insulin dependent, but over time, because and it's really a reflection of the receptors. Remember the key going into the lock, the lock becoming insensitive to the incoming insulin message. That's called insulin receptor insensitivity. And then the pancreas will keep pumping out more and more insulin, trying to counteract the fact that the body's not responding to it. And then the pancreas fails. And then at that point in the course of the disease, which is later for type 2 diabetes, then you might become insulin dependent and you'll have to do actual injections of insulin. Okay, it's a whole class of endocrinology specializing in diabetes, believe me. But it's good for you guys to understand this. This is a really great video right here where John, just like me, talks about the consequences of having his type 2 diabetes. And he goes through all of the different parts of his body. Anywhere that blood goes, okay, is going to be impacted, okay, especially those areas that need a lot of blood flow, okay. And remember, if you're diabetic, you get inflammation in the blood vessels. They get candy coated, okay. Um, the eye doesn't get the nutrients that it needs, okay, and you start having what's called retinopathy or diabetic blindness. On the brain, you're increased risk of having a stroke because your brain is less than 5% of your body mass, but it consumes 25 to 30% of all the nutrients that come in. So it needs to have really big blood vessels that work really well. In diabetes, the blood vessels get coated with candy and they get inflamed. The next thing you know, instead of being like this, they're going like this and this and this and this and this. And then it is also a high risk condition, diabetes, for throwing clots, which will then boom occlude it, and then the tissue dies off. So that'll happen in the brain, that'll happen in the kidney, that'll happen in the heart. Okay. It also happens down here in the extremities, okay? And so you have what's a condition of neuropathy, which is severe pain. And it has to do with the fact you're just not getting good blood flow down into the extremities. And in worst case scenario, if you don't get good blood flow, the tissue begins to die off. The immune system has trouble getting in there and repairing it, and people lose limbs. So it's a and this sadly this is one of the things. There is a complete genetic or inherited predisposition, but there's so much choice involved in diabetes. You just have to, you know, um, eat the Mediterranean diet. Stop eating so many donuts and sugar-laden foods. You don't over nutrition. Okay, so there is this craze, but it's something that we practice in a lot of my classes that I practice, and it's called intermittent fasting, and it keeps this from happening. So intermittent fasting, we eat from 12 noon to 8 o'clock at night, and then we go to bed and we fast in the morning. In fact, today's a good day to go for a walk before my other classes after I get done with this lecture, and I will have not had any calories. Okay. All right. Cool. So that's a real good background. Again, what you do is you just, click this guy open right here. It's from the American Diabetic Association. It's pretty straightforward. It explains everything in a little bit more detail. In comes your food right here. Okay, their pancreas responds by releasing insulin. That's the I. You have all the glucose that came in when you were eating your meal right here. Okay, glucose is not the only thing. You have fats. You have amino acids from protein. Okay. Um, in addition, depending on what's going on, if you don't have enough glucose entering muscle cells, your liver will release glucose as well. And if there's too little insulin or your cells can't use it, they can't read it, the liver will continue to pump out the glucose, making the situation worse. Okay? Alrighty, and so these are the consequences of diabetes. Okay, you're very, very thirsty because what happens is when you have high glucose in your blood, it goes down to your kidneys, and everywhere the glucose goes, it pulls water. Okay, and if you take a glass of water and you add a tablespoon of sugar to it and you stir it up, it disappeared. Okay, that's because the glucose molecules surround themselves with water, and as the glucose goes into the kidney, it pulls the water with it. So you're going to be very thirsty. Okay, you're going to, as indicated, it's going in your kidney. You're going to pee a lot. Okay, um, now. Since the glucose cannot get into your cells, okay, because the insulin receptors are not working, then you feel incredibly fatigued, okay? Um, really poor circulation leads to poor vision. It leads to really, really huge problems in terms of the immune system getting out to where you have cuts and wounds. So you're going to have more frequent infections. And while I said that obesity was a huge risk factor, okay, down the line, when you're at the very tail end, you'll actually begin to lose weight because you're not getting the glucose into your cells. Okay, so again, here's the long-term consequences: permanent blindness, permanent kidney disease, and what happens is people lose their kidneys and they have to go on dialysis, okay, or wait for a kidney transplant. Permanent nerve damage that causes both pain and a loss of a sensation of touch, balance. Nerve cells get impacted. Extreme conditions where the tissue dies off, you can have an amputation, and of course, like I said, a heart attack and stroke. Okay, and it's because the blood vessels going to the brain and to the heart are severely compromised by the diabetic situation. All right. Type 1 diabetes, this is juvenile onset. It was an autoimmune. The pancreas actually gets destroyed by the immune system. All right. So little or no insulin. Type 2, okay. You still produce insulin, but now every cell in your body, the fat cells, the muscle cells, the liver cells, they don't recognize the insulin as well because their receptors are all tweaked. Okay, that's called insulin resistance, and it's just basically a snowball effect, a downward spiral. Okay, over time, the pancreas will keep producing more and more insulin, and then it fatigues and stops working as well. That's late phase type 2 diabetes. So here's again the concept of of juvenile onset diabetes. Okay, you see most people are under the age of 20 when diagnosed. Okay, they need insulin injections. Okay, and it goes through a lot of the symptoms that are characteristic. Okay, some of them are very the same. Okay, if you don't have any insulin, you run the risk of going into what's called ketoacidosis, where your body uses only fat and it changes the pH of your blood. It's an emergency condition. All right, so this is when a diabetic needs to have an insulin injection. Okay, alrighty, cool. Alrighty, and this then goes into type 2 diabetes. Okay, again, being overweight is the huge risk factor. Okay. And we just look at the epidemiology in our country. Certainly white people have this issue, but we can look across the cultures. It impacts the lower socioeconomic groups a lot more dramatically. Okay. Here's all the symptoms that I already went over. Okay. And the key really is education, healthy eating. You can counteract your reliance on drugs by just exercising and eating better. Sadly, once you've kind of gone over the threshold of being a type 2 diabetic, you're gonna need to use some drugs, but it doesn't always have to be an insulin injection. There are pill form drugs that help increase the sensitivity of your insulin receptors. These pills, which again you can just take with a glass of water, also can increase the amount of insulin that gets released when you do have a meal. So there's other ways around having to do it beyond insulin injection. That's if you catch it early. Later on, you're going to have to do insulin injections. Okay, these are the risk factors right here. Okay, and again, we see how obesity and diabetes, it just goes hand in hand. Okay, and we're looking here is another epidemiology we look at by state and by time, and we can see that it's like completely paralleling each other, and it's very clear that is the group we're looking at. Obese individuals is the group we're looking at. Okay. All right, so big burden for you individually, big burden for us as a society as well, if we look at the amount of money that's spent on diabetes. Okay, pre-diabetics, you're right there. There's different ways of looking at of monitoring your diabetes. Right here, we do not want you to have high blood pressure. That's another symptom of diabetes. Your A1C is a measure of your blood glucose, chronic. You want to keep it at 7. There's another one, which is your fasting blood glucose should be below 100 milligrams percent. We can do a glucose challenge test where you take a little glass of water that should be below 140 milligrams percent. So when you start approaching that, you're pre-diabetic, okay? And then when you far exceed it, you are a diabetic, okay? All right. All right, so that's pretty much it. So that's it's a great primer. Obviously it's a big deal. Okay, and in here we look at again projections, for the world. So we have another PDF file right here that you can download. Real quick read on that. Okay, watch these videos. They describe everything. Okay, this is a summary of the complications right here. I did want to throw this out because it's so newsworthy. So I just added this morning, and we look at here, diabetes causes inflammation. Okay, again, the high level of blood glucose is not normal. Okay, another thing that is a contributing factor to inflammation is obesity. So all these what are called inflammatory messengers. Okay, these are all hormones released by both fat cells and immune system cells, and the immune system invades the fat you see in this guy's tummy right here. And all these signals dramatically impact this insulin signaling that result in insulin resistance and cause diabetes. Okay, and we've heard with this COVID-19 pandemic that inflammation is why people get really, really sick and die. So if you already have this background of huge inflammation because you're obese and you're a diabetic, this is why you're the highest risk group, okay? Alrighty, so I just kind of go through all the things that are, are at risk with diabetes right here, okay? And then also, in terms of COVID-19. I talk about the inflammatory signals right here, okay? And then there's another component to this information, okay? It's not in this figure, but we have a lot of these messengers, they have a cascade of events that will activate the inflammatory, what are called ACE receptors, okay? That's short for angiotensin converting enzyme. We have kind of a yin and yang, a good versus evil in our body. We also have another type of receptor called an ACE2 receptor, okay? And this ACE2 receptor reduces inflammation and helps to make us better. And everything that you do, diet, exercise, elevates these ACE2 receptors, okay? The SARS-CoV-2 virus binds to these ACE2 receptors, okay? And that's how it gets into cells, okay? But more importantly, it takes them out of commission. All right. So now instead of that balance, all you have is the ACE receptor that is inflammation, inflammation, inflammation. You're screwed. You're screwed. And so you have all this inflammatory disease in the lungs, okay, in the brain, in the heart, in the kidneys. It's everywhere. Okay. Um, what else do we know about this? So we know that as people get older, they actually have fewer of these ACE2 receptors. Now, what that means is you have fewer to lose. Okay. If all your good guy ACE2 receptors are occupied by the SARS-CoV-2, you're left with nothing, and you're just super hyper inflammatory. Okay, and that is what's causing the disease, and that's why the majority of drugs before the vaccination that are being used to keep people alive are drugs that reduce inflammation. Okay, alrighty. So that's just a quick primer. It's fairly complex biology. So, all right. Don't ever forget. I should always tell you at the beginning. Open this quiz before you start the video that you're watching here. All right. Then this is kind of a fun part. We want you to go in, and we talked about obesity. Okay. So let's look at your body weight and your body mass index, okay, and preferred body mass indexes. So you basically go in here. Now, there's a disclaimer. This is the most rudimentary, gross way of looking at somebody in terms of their risk for disease, okay? Are you obese? If you're an athlete, okay, if you have large bones and large muscles, you're going to have a high BMI. So this is just there are other measures that can be taken. All right. But the bottom line, you go in and you click under this right here, and yeah, thank you. And we come back over here. Obviously, I've been in here, and you just enter, your height and your weight, and you get your BMI. Okay. And and then you go ask yourself, do I have a good BMI? All right. So I can go right over here. I would say desired BMI. Okay, what's a desired BMI? BMI of less than 18.5 means the person is underweight. A BMI between 18.5 and 24.9 is ideal. All right, let's go back to here. Now you can tell I'm a skinny dude, just the way I am, okay? So I can come over here and we can look at Walsh's BMI here. So I'm 6 feet, okay? And I'm about 166, okay? Calculate, boom, all righty. My BMI is a 22.5. Right, so I'm right in that normal range. Okay, that's a good thing. Okay, but other things, we can look at the hip to waist ratio. You can actually take a caliper and measure fat. Don't get worried. This is just as you discuss it in your discussion, think about that. Okay, all right. The next thing we do is to come down here, and we can then take into consideration our BMI, but also let's look at our longevity. There's a bunch of really cool calculators, but we want life expectancy. So we come over here, we click right there. All right, we scroll on down. Life expectancy. Life expectancy dropped in our country, sadly, this year. So, alrighty. So I can come in here. I'm a male, okay? My date of birth is June, okay? Not quite. All right, well, 56, okay, all right. All right. Okay, I have an additional life expectancy here just because of just a rudimentary analysis by epidemiologists of people my age. If I've gotten to this age right now, then I have a pretty good chance of getting to here. All right, all right, all right. So that's pretty simple stuff. Okay, all right. And then there's another one you can fill down here that's kind of fun from an investment company. Obviously, if I'm going to give you life insurance, okay, or do your portfolio, I want to know more about. So the cool thing about this is I like it is you can get in here and do your age and weight and see how that events. Are you educated? So it's a real cool look at epidemiology, right? So let's go into that and figure out your life expectancy, and then get in there and discuss what you find. All right. Okay, guys. So very cool. Well, one thing I did want to show you, when I was discussing this concept of COVID-19. It's for another class that I'm going to be doing here, but you can see here in the image when I was talking about the inflammation, the good guy versus bad guy in these ACE receptors. Um, and they're mediators of inflammation in the vasculature, okay? And so we can see on the left-hand side hypertension, diabetes, kidney disease, cigarette smoking, on and on and on and on. You have an increase of balance of the ACE receptor. And then you see down here on the other side, if you have anti-inflammation, which you get from exercise, proper diet, eating antioxidants, on and on and on, then that is going to keep you from getting inflamed, okay? So these two are always doing this all the time, okay? Exercise, estrogens, all these things, okay? If we take those ACE2 receptors out, okay? And so what happens is the COVID-19, okay, the spike protein binds to ACE2, okay? The ACE2 then sucks it into the cell. It's gone. Okay, and then the virus then once into your cell turns your cell into a new virus making machine that more viruses go after. Poof! It kicks them out into the blood. It binds to more ACE2 receptors, sucks it in the cell, and you just keep making more and more and more. Okay, the whole time you can see how the balance is going to be shifting the other way. Instead of being ACE2 being predominant, ACE becomes predominant, and you have all these different situations where the COVID-19 is worsening. Okay, all right. So that's a quick primer in biology, my friends. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and say, see you guys, and it's always a pleasure.